how do you how do you find it? Do you find it easy to keep that energy going, or do you ever need to take a break from time to time? If so, why?
I would say no. There's nothing I'd rather be doing than making records and playing shows, and I think it's a gift that I get to do it. So every time I get to go out and play a show is a good day for me.
Okay, that's good. And you spoke a little bit earlier before we went live. You actually played with Morris Day and the Time. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Just, how many years?
Yeah, well, 1985, I got the gig with Morris right after Purple Rain, and the time broke up. Morris wanted to go solo, so he moved to Los Angeles where I lived and put a solo band together. And I was delivering pizzas to pay the bills, so I was very eager to get out of that business and trying to figure out how to break into show business, And I went and auditioned on keyboards. I learned how to play Jungle Love and The Bird, and he hired me. And I had to convince him I really was more of a sax player after the fact. And then they gave me a spot to play in the show. But that started my career of about 7 years as a sideman, touring around with people like the Isley Brothers and Bobby Caldwell and Tina Marie and all kinds of gigs.
That's amazing. As I do research with various artists, I'm beginning to find out, within their history. I never knew George Duke played with Frank Zappa.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you played with some greats in the jazz community. Could you name a few, please?
I'm sorry, I missed your question.
Like I was saying, that I never knew George Duke played with Frank Zappa. And I was wondering, with some of the greats that you've played with, that you've had the honor and pleasure to play with.
Well, like the few I mentioned, Bobby Caldwell, Randy Crawford, Tina Marie, the Isley Brothers, Morris, Sheena Easton, Sherelle. When I started making my records, of course, I've had a lot of collaborations. I've got like a list of 35 collaborations that George Benson, George Duke, Joe Sample, October London's on the new CD, Raheem Devon, and Anthony Hamilton, people like that. So.
Okay. Now, I appreciate the fact, because I also DJ in the dance community in Detroit, and I play a lot of songs where, like you do, a lot of Motown covers, R&B covers, which are great, and I love the fact that you make the songs your own. Do you get discouraged when people talk down on? I know some people are considered pure jazz enthusiasts. I appreciate the remakes. It brings back some music that normally wouldn't get played. But does that disappoint you that some people look on smooth jazz as not jazz?
I don't pay any attention to that kind of stuff. I'm just making my music, and luckily there's plenty of people that like it. I know I do. I'm making music for me for the most part. And the fact that there's an audience for it is just another sort of gift. So I don't pay any attention to that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I always wondered, sometimes you hear the conversations, and everybody's entitled to like what they like, But I know and I don't know if people consider it smooth jazz. My mother was a great Ramsey Lewis fan, so Maiden Voyage was the first jazz tune that actually caught my ear. And that started my journey. I've never been a musician or anything like that. And
well, there's a famous quote that there's only two kinds of music, good and bad.
Thank you. Look, I was told by one of the elders in the neighborhood, when you listen to jazz, if it soothes your soul, that's all that matters. If you can find a rhythm in it that soothes your soul, that's all that matters. But you've put forth quite a bit of music over the years. Do you have anything new coming up, or?
I have a record that's out now. Just came out in October of last year called Slow Burn, and this is the Slow Burn tour that we're on. We're coming to Detroit very soon, playing at the Music Hall, and that's really what I'm concentrating on right now.
Okay, and yeah, I actually play that within the dance community, and I love your collaboration with October London.
Thank you.
But Slow Burn is very nice, very, very nice, for my age. I'll be 65 in July, so we still love slow dancing. But Slow Burn is a very nice tune that's picking up some popularity in the dance community. So
sweet.
But yeah, and how was it working with October London?
We only met in person after the fact. Everything these days is all virtual. I sent him the track. He went in the studio and sent me what he did, and I fell in love with it right away, of course. But then after the record was done, we got together and made some video promotional stuff, and that's when we got to hang out a bit. And he's a great cat, incredible talent. And that song went top 10 on the R&B chart, which is pretty slick for an instrumentalist.
Oh yeah, it did. It's still very popular. So, would you like to talk about your upcoming concert at Music Hall?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This is our second time in as many years playing the Music Hall, and we are going to be there. I'm looking at my calendar on the 13th of June, which is just about a week and a couple days away. So can't wait.
Okay, yeah. Hopefully, I get a chance to be there. I just recently retired, but God has been keeping me busy. But if I get a chance, I'll definitely be down there to check you out. It's a great venue. It's a very great venue. I know you'll sound great in it.
We love to put on a show.
How can your fans contact you?
Well, I have BoneyJames.com as my website, and that is the one-stop shop. There's links to all my social media stuff on there, and people can always reach out.
Okay. So that's BoneyJames.com, and
that's the one.
Link it with everyone.
Yes, okay. Yes, sir.
And what I'll do is, once I get back to my show, I'll make sure I, mention that to the listeners so they can reach out to you. And I'll also talk about your show. But this is an honor. It really
thank you, man.
This is
my pleasure.
That's one of the beautiful things about coming to the station. I've been on here about a year. I've got a chance to meet a lot of local talent, and some up and coming artists. From various areas. They're starting to reach out now and send music to us to listen to see if they can get it played. And I'm actually loving the journey. Coming behind some of the greats like Ed Love, Rosetta Hines. And this is really an honor to get a chance to interview you and meet with you. Hopefully I get a chance to meet you face to face.
Okay.
I really do, But I'm looking forward to hearing some more good music from you. Your next album, that's Slow Burn, that's a full album?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's 10 songs, and we're probably only two songs into it right now. So we're going to be working that record for another 18 months, I'm sure.
Okay, so now for you 2 songs in, what would be your next song that you would like to see come out?
Well, I think they're going to release a tune called The Bounce as the next single, which is one of my favorites on the record. It's a real old school groove.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah, so very interesting. So how long does it normally take you to put together an album from start to finish?
It varies, I think this one came out pretty quick. It was probably the 6 months from beginning to end, which is pretty quick. And I had not written any music before I sat down to write this record, and it just all kind of flowed.
Okay, now do you have your own studio, and then do you go to?
Yeah, where I'm sitting right now is my home studio, and this is where I do most of the work.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that with October London, you basically, sent each other your work and put it together. Then do you miss being in the studio with your full ensemble, working on it together, practicing before and then going into the studio all at once to play for them?
I think people will be surprised. A lot of the record business, just like Hollywood, it's a little bit of magic involved, and people have always done overdubs. I mean, we have recorded a few songs over the years where kind of a live hit. Thinking a song called Into the Blue and my version of Grazing in the Grass. That was the whole band in the studio playing live. But for the most part, I think it's really productive to put it together one piece at a time, and then you can really make sure it's all what you want it to be. Because playing a live show is one thing, and it's in the moment, and the energy is there. But a record, you want it to live forever. You want it to be right.
Yeah, I understand. Well, Mr. James, or may I call you Boney?
Yes, of course.
It's been a pleasure interviewing you. We have to wrap this up right now, but hopefully I'll get to see you at your concert. I'll try and make a way for it.
All right, man. We love playing in Detroit, man. Detroit always gives it up.
We love hearing you too. We love hearing you. You've always given the world some great music. So, thank you very much. Pleasure to meet you. and hopefully we can, meet each other. What's that, next week?
Yep, coming up quick.
Yeah.
Get your tickets.
All right then. All right. Talk to you later. Peace.